All right. Hello, everybody. I hope you can see me and everyone else here at the moment. Welcome to the UQCS Industry Panel. I'm Matt. I'm the Secretary of the UQ Computing Society, and I'll be emceeing tonight's event. Tonight, we're joined by representatives from UQCS's gold sponsors, Atlassian, Canva, IMC, Technology One, and Vivian Court Trading. They're here today to answer some commonly asked questions about what life is like at their companies and other questions that you might have. 4 questions. You can go to the slider in the top right of the stream and enter the code E768, and you can suggest questions for me to ask. You can also discuss tonight's event on the industry panel chat on our Slack channel. Industry panel channel on our Slack chat, which if you haven't joined, please join at slack.uqcs.org.au. So without further ado, I'd like to start. Firstly, I'd like to go around and ask the representatives to introduce themselves and their respective companies. So firstly, Rachel from Atlassian. Hello.
Hey everyone, I am Rachel from Atlassian. Atlassian make tools for collaboration among teams, often software teams. And I've been with Atlassian for 2.5 years. I started as a grad there.
Okay, wonderful. Next, let's ask Jessica from Canva.
Hi everyone, my name is Jess. I've been with Canva for almost 2 years now. I'm the University Programs Manager here. Canva is on a mission to empower the world to design, so no small feat, but I work very closely with the grads and the interns in creating opportunities for them to make impact. So that's me.
Thanks, Jess. Next, I'll ask Connor from IMC.
Hey guys, I'm Connor. I'm from IMC. We're a proprietary trading firm focused on high frequency trading. I've been with IMC for just a little bit over 6 months at this point.
Okay. Next, Matt from Technology One.
Hi, I'm Matt from Technology One. I think I might be the odd one out here in that I've been at Technology One for a very, very, very long time. I joined Tech One in 1996. And in that time, I've had an awful lot of roles, which has been fantastic. So we are an enterprise software company. We are a multinational, so based in Brisbane, but offices around the world and customers around the world too. We do, as I said, enterprise software, so financials, HR and payroll, student management for universities, property and rating management for councils and things like that. And I'm also heavily involved with our grad and intern programs.
Okay, thank you. And finally, James from Vivian Court Trading.
Hi, so yeah, I'm James. I'm at Vivian Court, it's a proprietary trading firm as well. Been there for about 16 months now. And my role there is a quantitative research, mostly is like an analyst. And I work on the high frequency trading side.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. So the first question I'd like to ask you all, what's a typical day like a day in the life at your company? Whoever would like to start? Yeah. Anyone?
Sure, I'll jump in.
Yeah.
Sweet. So day in the life for me, it's a little bit different now that we're all working from home, but I'll give you a typical day when it's not super weird. So in the weekday, we'll get up and a bunch of people from work will go to a class in the morning, like a fitness class that's organised by the company. It's a thing called OMLAC that we do, and then we'll come into the office, grab some breakfast there and start maybe do an hour of work before we do a stand-up for everyone. So everyone in the execution team, which is the side that I'm on, will come in and share what they've been doing in 20, 30 seconds. And that just is so that everyone knows what's going on. You can collaborate with people once you know what they're doing. Then I'll go back to my desk, and then it depends on the day. So some days, if you're feeling like it, you can just put your head down and code for 7 hours if you really want to. Other days you can go into like discussions of what projects are going to look like for up from a month from now. So planning, or you might just get pulled away to get asked your opinion on, hey, we're thinking of doing this feature, how would you best do it? And that collaboration for us will be between your small team. So my team has 5 people, but also there's a lot of interaction with the traders. So you might go over and ask a trader, hey, I want to do this thing. How do you currently do it now? what's the best thing about that? So a day can look like a lot of different things, but most of the time it ends up, you do some code and then you try and figure out problems with both technical devs as well as traders who want to give those problems to you. That's a day for me.
Okay, wonderful. Who would like to go next? Yeah. Rachel?
I'll jump in there.
Yeah.
Other end of the spectrum, I'm part of the leadership team at TechOne, and we've got an R&D department of roughly 400 people. So the day begins with a stand-up with the leadership team. So the directors and project managers for each of the 14 products come together for our own leadership stand-up. All of the individual teams do their own stand-ups, of course, as well. But that's an opportunity for the leadership team to come together and discuss the progress through the release. So we do 2 releases of our software a year. So we're discussing the progress of all of our teams through the release. But it's also an opportunity for those 14 product teams to come together once a day and discuss anything that might need to be resolved, especially any cross-product issues that have arisen overnight or customer problems. Those all happen as part of that stand-up. So it is probably the most important part of our daily routine, is that coming together and bringing together the leadership team for 400 devs so that we can make sure that we're all on the same page. After that, again, a lot of different things can happen. The normal course of my day, because I run the R&D marketing team at Technology One, which has internal and external facing. I do a lot of coordination work across those 14 teams. So a lot of what we do is bringing together our release, for example. And so we'll meet with all the different teams to coordinate those things. But we also have our Future Software Leaders program. And again, at the moment, we're in some fairly unusual times. But we run a lot of events internally and externally as well. For everyone from primary school kids right through to university students, grads and interns. We're in the middle of our grad project at the moment. They're just finishing up their last couple of weeks. So in any given day, I could be working with 5-year-old school students through to the CEOs of our customers and through to industry analysts as well. So it can be very varied, and as a result, it's always interesting and very rewarding.
Wonderful. Next, I'll ask Jess.
Of course. So my role is a little bit different to those in the chat as well. So I work predominantly in the people team. So I get to kind of see from that side of things what all of our devs are doing and the initiatives we're doing to support them. So a normal day for me is probably starting off with one of our boot camps. So we have our own health and wellness coordinator, Bibi, and we either do that in the office or we go to a park locally, do some boxing, and then come back into the office ready to have some fresh breakfast, actually in the cafe behind me. This is one of our spaces, and then get ready for the day. We also have a stand-up to kind of just talk about what we're focusing on for the day. And then we'll kind of have deep focus in the mornings for me. Then kind of chef calls lunch at midday, and we head on down for some of our freshly prepared lunch, which we are still kind of having in this remote time. So our chefs are actually sending us out little ingredient shopping lists at the start of the week, and then also doing little prep videos. So it's called What's Cooking with Chef, which is pretty cute. So that's a nice touch at the moment. And then I work closely with Canberra University and looking at, say, a day in my life when the interns were here, I'd be working with them to talk about kind of professional development areas that we can be focusing on for them, or speaking with some of the engineers to talk about how we can do a bit more close mentoring on a technical perspective to get them up to speed. So a lot of support there. I also worked closely with our intern club. So whether that was organising Family Feud or organising Amazing Race with one of our providers, yeah, my days really varied, but a lot of fun projects that I get to be exposed to. So yeah, that's me.
Okay, wonderful. I'll ask Rachel next.
Hey, so yeah, my typical day sort of starts off with me grabbing breakfast in the office, and while I'm eating breakfast, I sort of just sit at my desk, catch up on any Slack messages that came in, maybe emails if there are any, or if there's some simple sort of pull requests from other people in my team, I might sit there and review those while I'm just having breakfast. Otherwise, I then start the day with looking at any comments that came in on my pull requests, fixing up my code, and just getting to work coding, I suppose. We do have stand-up. My team does it in the morning, some don't. And other than that, it's mostly just coding. In terms of meetings and things like that, it depends on the day. So on Mondays, we'll typically have like a sort of backlog grooming meeting in my team where we'll go through any new tickets that came in, new tasks that came in from other teams, and say like, oh, should we reprioritize this? Like someone's told us to do this, maybe this is more important than what we're already going to do. So Monday is sort of planning. If it's, you know, a Friday, it might be something like demos within the team to show like, hey, this is what I did this week. What do you think? What should I change? Or maybe it'll be like sort of more socially drinks things on Fridays. Otherwise, the regular meetings we have are things like retrospectives to say, you know, hey, what's working well in the team, what's not. And things like tech ops meetings, which is something we do weekly, which is where we sit down and we look through our metrics for whatever service we're running, and we say, hey, how reliable was it in the past week? Has it slipped in speed or anything like that? What should we focus on there? What were the problems we had this week, and how do we stop them from happening ever again? Yeah, otherwise it's yeah, just your standard brekkie lunch with the team or lunch with the other grads. And one thing we do, I don't personally go to the fitness classes at work, but we do yoga and things like that. And they have actually moved yoga classes onto Zoom virtually now that we're all working from home. So dialed into one of those the other day. It was pretty great.
Oh, that's wonderful. Can have yoga across the internet. Didn't know that. James, how about Vivian Court? What's a day in the life at your company?
So a day in the life of Vivian Court is slightly different from most. My role being trading oriented, so I usually come in, have my breakfast that's provided, and we'd have a daily stand-up talking about market analysis, what's happened overnight, how the indexes have moved in other countries and vice versa. And then usually would have one of my weekly massages. And then depending on the day, in the morning might also include a meditation session held by our office manager, who's a Buddhist nun. So the CEO of BivCourt, Rob Kuldulis, is a Buddhist, and there's a lot of that tied into the company. But there's usually vegetarian food cooked for lunch, but that's not every day. That's usually 2 days a week. In between that, I would be usually writing back tests for different strategy analysis for different, I guess, new trading strategies. So I'd be testing things more sort of like data science type things. So running things using Scala on Databricks. And yeah, beyond that, there's the lunch. So my desk was Hong Kong. So our lunch was actually at 3 p.m., which is not ideal, but we do get fed along the way with some snacks. So it's not so bad. But yeah,
Okay.
Beyond that, mostly dev work.
Okay, wonderful. So the next question I had for everyone here is, what are some common misconceptions people have about your company or your field or your specific job? I'll start again, same order. So Connor.
Good thing. I think the biggest misconception, and this was one that someone had coming into it, was that you need to be good at finance to be able to come to IMC, and you need to know everything about the markets and stuff like that, which was definitely not the case when I applied because I knew nothing. And here I am. It's definitely, particularly for the dev roles and for the trading roles, as long as you have the requisite skills, all you need is an interest in the financial markets and the willingness to learn, and that's what we really look for. So that is a pretty big misconception. I think the other misconception is that there's no, like, it's hard to have a work-life balance in the industry that we're in, which at least IMC makes sure for us that we've definitely got a good work-life balance, and it's not crazy ridiculous hours like I think some people think that it would have been. Yeah, we're all about being sustainable in our success. So those are the two misconceptions that I think there are.
Okay. What about you, Matt, at Technology One? What are some misconceptions?
I think one of the misconceptions that people have is once you join, you're kind of stuck in the whatever role you start in. So, as I said, we've got 14 products, and there does seem to be a bit of a misconception that if, for example, you join in our financials team, that you're stuck in financials for the rest of your life. Whereas in actual fact, it couldn't be further from the truth. We do really encourage our people to move between different teams and also to move between different functions in the company. So when I joined, I was a technical consultant way back when, and I've had roles through pre-sales, through R&D, back in consulting. I started our cloud team when we first took our first go into cloud about 8 years ago. And now I'm back in R&D running a different team. So I think that's the real core misconception is that you can really only have one career at TechOne, where in actual fact, we encourage people to have multiple.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. Next, Jess, what are some misconceptions about Canva and your job?
Yeah, for sure. I think there's two. Some people think that we are only purely a design company, so only hire designers, which is not true. Our largest specialty is engineering, and we are trying to solve a lot of very interesting and challenging problems. I think we've had, for instance, it's not just a front-end project. We've got 3.5 billion images uploaded to our platform to date. We've got terabytes and terabytes of data that we're sorting. We're working through to eventually get to continuous deployment and weekly, daily releases we're up to now. And also that we are San Francisco based, which I've heard a few times, but we're actually an Australian company, started by a couple in Perth. Our head office, we don't like to use that term, but we are mainly situated in Sydney, but we do expand across 2 offices in China, an office in Manila, Philippines, and we're about to launch our office in the States as well. But we're big on collaboration and ensuring our culture is the same across all of the offices and how we approach problems together. Yeah.
Okay, wonderful. Next, Rachel.
Yeah, so there are a bunch of misconceptions about Atlassian, but I think one of the big ones is that, we're this huge company and it must be super corporate with all these like processes and whatnot, like as if you have to go up through 7 levels of management to try and get an IntelliJ license or something like that. And it's really not like that at all. Like we do have a lot of processes where they make sense and where they're helpful. So I guess an example of that is we do have sort of this like approved tech stack where we have these pages on like, here are the languages that we commonly use in the company, and it's really good for guidance on like, hey, if you want a JSON processing library, like in this language we recommend this one for these reasons, these teams have found it helpful for this reason. But other than that, like it's way more bottom up than you would expect. And for example, one of the processes we have is like, if you have a new starter on your team, here's like the amount of budget you can take them out to lunch, here's how you expense it. Like it's all really sort of helpful, team oriented, and if it was ever top down, there would just be so much pushback. It's just, yeah, it's a much more sort of agile place than you would think.
Okay, thank you. And finally, James, what are the misconceptions about VivCourt and maybe trading as well?
Yeah, I think I can sort of echo what Connor said. There's sort of preconceived notion by a lot of people that you need to have a finance degree or economics or something related to have your foot in the door. But most people, even on the trading side, didn't study finance or economics. There's a lot of engineers, computer scientists, physicists, even people with law degrees and whatnot. So beyond that, there's even sometimes the conception it's a bit like Wolf of Wall Street, but we're probably more like Google than Goldman Sachs. To be honest, it's a tech company. Most people, play chess or like playing poker, or they have academic interests. So we're very much a tech company that happens to trade in the financial markets.
Cool. Thank you for those responses. They're great. Let's begin with the next section. So a lot of people here watching are keen university students, right, who would like to get a job at one of your companies. And so one of the questions that was very commonly asked is, what is your process like? What is your hiring process? So I'll start with Connor from IMC. So what's the process like for an intern or a grad or someone who'd like to get a job at IMC?
There we go. So we've got a relatively detailed process, and it's for 3 different roles. So you can come in as a software engineer, a hardware engineer doing like FPGA design. If people know what that is, then maybe you should apply for that role. And we also have a trading role, and they share relatively similar processes. So you'll do an online application. If you're going to do a software engineering role, you do a codility test, which is just like a basic coding test where that's submitted through online, and then we'll look through your resume. Then after that, we have some screening. So we have a video interview where you answer technical questions. We have a behavioral interview as well, and a aptitude test. And afterwards, then you can come and do one in-person interview and then another final day, which is like an in-person interview and behavioral interview with people from the office. Obviously, if you have questions about that, one of our HR, Michaela Clark, is in the Slack chat, so you can just ask her if you want detailed specifics.
Yeah, sorry, I just forgot to mention again, so as you can see on the stream, there is the industry panel Slack chat, and during the night and after as well, we'll have representatives from all of these companies who you can ask any more specific questions to, and that includes any sort of recruiting or hiring questions. So next, Matt from Tech One, what is your hiring process like?
Yeah, so we go through a fairly formal process for grads and interns, and the process is the same for both. I think the thing about our grad program is that until recently, it was just for hiring people into R&D. But in the last 12 months, we've expanded it to taking graduates into our consulting division, our sales division, our support team, and our application managed services team, which is basically like remote consulting. So the roles that we have available to grads and interns have expanded significantly over the last 12 months. So that's a great thing, right? More roles, more breadth, more interests that we can accommodate. The process is pretty similar for all of them, though. It's an online application process, which is very simple. There's some online questions to answer. Then there is an online video interview. If you get through those first 2 steps, then there is a test, and the test is a coding test for coders, of course. We do have a business analysis test for BAs, and there are other less formal testing processes for the other roles like project managers or user experience or consulting and so forth. But there's always an aptitude testing component to the process. Once through those gates, we then bring the candidates into the Technology One office, and we have a 2-day intense workshop with those people. So on the first day, it's all about the candidates learning about Technology One, because we want people to understand our culture very deeply and basically to know what they're getting themselves into. So that's all about us taking people through Technology One. They get addresses from our senior leadership team about what it is that we do, how we do it, and our culture. And then on the second day, there is a formal interview process where it's basically turned around, and then the candidates tell us in a live interview panel situation about themselves and what they want to do and how they would like to fit into the Technology One family. So at that final stage, we normally have about 100 people. and we will take that down to however many roles we have available in the year. But last year that was 63 roles.
Okay, thanks for that. Jess, what's the hiring process like at Canva?
Yeah, of course. So we have, for our graduates, you can come through the front end or back end stream. We are actually just about to relaunch our interview process, but you still have an application stage where you provide us with your beautiful resume that you designed with Canva, and your transcripts, just so we can see where your strengths are. You will then have a recruiter screen with our awesome grad recruiter, Van. If you do well in that, you proceed to a 60-minute technical interview with one of our engineers. And so that's through the platform HackerRank. So just kind of getting to know you a little bit and your problem-solving skills. Then in the final interview, which we're revamping, it's going to be 3 45-minute technical interviews and 1 45-minute values-based interview. This values-based component is we want to get to know if you kind of align with Canva's values, and also areas that you could really be in strength, how you communicate, and different kind of data points like that, so we can really build kind of diverse thinking teams, because we're building a global product, so we want to have those from all walks of life in a single team. So that's for our graduate pipeline. Same for front end and back end. For our interns, you still have the application stage, 60-minute recruiter interview, and then you meet with 2 engineers in a final interview, and that will be a 60-minute coding component, and then a 30-minute kind of get to know you, what your interests are, and kind of what you want to get out of an internship with us. That last component we kind of use to make sure that we can best assign you a project that you'll be working on during your time with us over the summer. So that's for interns.
Okay, fantastic, thank you. Rachel, what's the process like at Atlassian?
Yeah, so Atlassian's grad and interview pipeline sort of have the same setup. And it's kind of similar to Canva's by the sound of it. So we start off with a HackerRank test where it's 90 minutes that's sent to your email. You go through and do as much as you can in 90 minutes of this HackerRank test. And after that, there's 3 back-to-back interviews that you'll be invited to. So one of those is a project-based interview where we'll ask you about a project that you've done. Maybe it's a project that you've done at uni. Maybe it's you've done it with another employer about a project that you've done, and maybe it's a project that you've done at uni or with another employer or a side project. And we'll ask you questions about how you went through that process. So, you know, what technical decisions did you make in that project and why? If it was a team project, how'd you work in the team? Anything that sort of relates to that project. It can be anything you want. Another one of the interviews is a coding interview. It's similar to the HackerRank screening at the start, except it's pairing with us, so we can see how you think through a problem, how you communicate what you're doing, and how you communicate why you're making certain choices in the code that you're making. And the third interview is a values interview. So Atlassian has five values, and we want to see that you fit in with those. So some of those values are like, don't fuck the customer, build with heart and balance, and be the change you seek. But yeah, they're all on the website. And it's more of a behavioral interview style interview. Yeah, so once you pass those ones, you will then be presented with the offer for the internship or the grad program, and then you can come in and start working.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. Next, I'll ask James. Yeah, James. Yeah.
Okay, so after you apply for the grad program, you'd be, if you're successful, invited to take a few tests. So those would be if you're applying for a trading or quant style role, it would be a quick math test, a sequences and series test, so sort of patterns, and a stats test. If you're applying for a dev role, you will have the stats and a written coding technical test. Beyond that, then there'll be, if you're successful, reach our bar, There's 2 interview rounds, so a technical one and a personal one. In the technical one, you'd be one-on-one. If for a dev, you'd be one-on-one, asked to live code something on a whiteboard. And if you're applying for a trading style role, you'll be asked to solve a problem or answer something more, not necessarily relying on strict financial knowledge, but in a financial setting, solving a problem. So it might be something like figuring out the odds of winning a certain game tournament, or trying to calculate the price of something using an interesting or novel method. So the idea is to try and make an even playing field so that you don't come in with an advantage because you've done finance before. So it's sort of meant to test your problem solving skills. And but if you're coming from a dev perspective, obviously test whether you can program or not, but there's no specific need for tech stack knowledge.
Okay, great, thank you. Another question about hiring. So for students, what can a student do to make themselves more attractive to employers? I'll start with Connor again.
Sure. So obviously when we're hiring, but to be brutally honest, the first thing that you have to do is go well and get good grades at uni, because I think we take in over 1,000 applications and we take in about 1% of the applications. So you need to set yourself at a high standard there if you're looking to work with us. But after that stage, to make yourself stand out, I think there's a couple of things. The first thing I would say is that when you're interviewing, just being honest and being yourself around people is really, really important, because most people, when they're hiring you, I mean, they're going to know that they're going to have to work next to you, with you for however many years. So they want to like you and they want to get to know you. If you're just like a little bit robotic and trying to figure out that, like putting on a facade, then it usually comes through and doesn't do you well. And the second thing is that it can't be emphasized how important communication skills are in software work, particularly for IMC, because a lot of the time you're working with teams, and a lot of the time the people that you're working with won't have as much technical knowledge as you. Like our traders do know a lot of tech and do their own code and produce their own models, but aren't expected to know the tech stack to the extent that you do. So you need to be able to communicate ideas that are abstract or very specific and very technical in ways that everyone can understand them. So those are 2 key skills that someone who's got a great resume may not have. So those are ways that you can, like, focusing on being able to communicate those ideas and being yourself are the 2 ways I would say you should try and stand out.
Okay, perfect, thank you. Matt, what are some things that students can do to stand out when you're hiring?
Yeah, look, I agree completely with Connor in that marks are important, but they're certainly not the be all and end all. They might get you the interview, but they won't get you the job. So we do look for technical aptitude. Of course, you have to pass the coding test or the analysis tests. But once you get through those initial stages, what we're looking at then is to learn about you as a person and what you bring outside of just academic achievement or passing a test into Technology One, because we're exactly the same. Everything we do is teams-based, and we need to know that you can fit into a team and that you enjoy working in a small team environment with your 4 or 5 other people. The critical things that we look for are, what else do you do? So do you participate in hackathons? Do you run a website for a not-for-profit on the side? Do you run coding camps for kids? Anything like that. Have you worked at McDonald's? Because all of those experiences are going to inform the rest of your life. We really do take interest in people who, for example, have worked at McDonald's, because it shows that you can work in a team environment, sometimes maybe with people you don't like very much, but you can still do it and you can make it work and you can be part of that team. So all of those life experiences, and I know some people don't necessarily put those things on their resume. They think, oh, that's not part of my professional life, but they all are. They're all really important because they show your development as a person and what you bring into the organization.
Okay, thank you, Matt, for that. Jess, what are some things that students can do to stand out when you're hiring?
Yeah, I couldn't agree with Connor and Matt more. It is really about kind of just putting yourself out there on a piece of paper and being confident in what you've achieved to date. It doesn't matter if that's not sitting at a desk and you haven't had any industry experience. It doesn't mean you're not passionate about the area that you're studying and the where you want to go. We've all been there in kind of trying to land our first job. So really just put what you're passionate about. Be active on GitHub. We look at your GitHub, so definitely include that. Come along to events like this. I can't see your faces, but I'm seeing you're active on Slack, so I hope I'm not just speaking to the other 5 people in this Zoom call. But get to learn about the company and if they align with your values. There are so many companies out there. Make sure that they do and they're on a good mission that's interesting. Also, kind of be active in societies as well. In addition to events, are you helping out? Are you helping out in organizing things? Are you getting to know other students around you? Because it is great if you can kind of connect with the alumni. I know the alumni at UQ are really active. So get to know them. Set up a coffee date. They can introduce you to a recruiter. And look, sometimes we got over 2,500 applications for a 30-person internship last year. So if you can stand out in any way, even if it's a bit out of your comfort zone, do it. So yeah, that's what I would recommend.
Okay, thank you for that advice. Next, Rachel, what can students do to stand out when applying?
Yeah, so I sort of agree with what's been said. At least in Atlassian's case, things like side projects help, things like GPA help. None of them are deal breakers though. Like these things help, but they're not mandatory. But if you have any of them, absolutely, be putting them on your resume. If you're involved in clubs and societies, that looks awesome. Like if you if you want to get active in UQCS, even if you're not in the committee, if you want to do one of the talks, I believe UQCS love member talks, so get involved in that. Volunteer at like the tech conferences so that like you can meet people there. Sign up to things like tutoring at university. Like these are all skills that will get you noticed. Ultimately, our first filter is the HackerRank test, but after that point, like all of these things are good to have. Oh, and also if you show an interest in like our company, like specifically like why you want to work for us, that is also a great thing to do.
Okay, thank you. And finally, James, what can students do to stand out?
The first one I'm told is make sure you don't really have many errors on your application. Being a trading firm, we're particularly sensitive to errors. We're not very making a small mistake can have large repercussions. So showing that you've gone to the extra effort to remove any typos or whatnot shows us who you are as a person, which usually carries over to how you act in a job. But beyond that, how you can stand out, GPA is not a key requirement. So don't worry if you're not a 7 student. Obviously, it can help you get to the testing and interview round, but if you have other things that make up for maybe a GPA that's not so good, then that really does do the same thing. So, if you've participated in societies, whatnot, or demonstrated that you have external interests, or you've done your own projects, or you've done, your own quantitative work, you've done your own little maths project or whatnot, that does the exact same for us. So, but beyond that, communication skills as well. There's nothing more important really than making sure that if you're talking between traders or from dev to trader, making sure that you're both on the same page, because errors can be costly. So
Thank you. On that topic of trading, I have a question for Connor and James, specifically about trading. How do you describe the mental battle of trading? Do you have some sort of analogy? What is trading like? Like from someone who knows nothing about trading, maybe a software developer. What's the experience like? James, you can go first.
So it's not the case of people in the pits shouting at each other necessarily. Can get loud at times, but mostly it's a case of, if you see the screens behind me, people looking at lots of screens with lots of numbers and a couple of graphs, and essentially monitoring systems, running a few models and making a few predictions, but generally it's pretty tame. It's, in terms of a mindset, I guess it's like almost more like a giant game of poker than it is anything else. So it's sort of trying to predict where everyone else wants to go rather than necessarily everyone being right all the time, vice versa in terms of the role of the trader. And supporting that is just about information. They just want as much information as possible, and it has to be accurate. So it's fast paced, but not necessarily all the time. It comes in bursts. So
Connor, do you have anything to add about that description?
I wouldn't add too much, to be honest. I'm very much a software engineer and not a trader, so I don't do any of the trading. To me, it is just a bunch of guys staring at like 6 or 7 or 8 or 10 screens. I don't know how they work from home. I don't know how we found that many screens in Australia, but that's all right. But no, I joke a little bit. You do have to know a little bit about the trading, but if you're coming into a software role, it's more of like, you will definitely get taught the basics and need to know the basics, but you can be as involved in it, or as like, you can, if you show an interest in trading, you can really work towards being very on that side of things, or you can just work as a software engineer, working on software engineering problems that have been defined for you, basically.
Okay, thanks for those responses. My next question is about graduates and interns. So when they come to your company or companies, they might be a bit worried that what they're doing is inconsequential, or it's just a small thing that they've been assigned. What impact can students have at your company as a graduate student, as a graduate employee or an intern? So I'll start with Matt from Tech One.
Yeah, sure. I presented at a tech conference a little while ago with a whole bunch of other industry vendors, and a representative from a recent grad from a very large tech company with a 3-letter acronym that's been around a long time, was asked what he did when he first joined. And he said, for the first 2 years, I coded unit tests for someone else's code. And I really couldn't think of anything worse. So when grads and interns come into Tech One, and I'll take them separately because we treat them quite differently. Grads do a 12-week boot camp when they first join, and that's to learn our coding practices, our software development lifecycle, and we treat them like a startup. We give them a project to do, and they've got a very compressed time frame to do it. So they need to work out how they're going to prioritize things, work out their research, what are they actually going to code, develop a prototype, and then present it. So high pressure environment, they have to work together as a team, and it's really a little microcosm for how they're going to work throughout their life at Tech One. And straight away after that 12 weeks, they're then put in product teams, and they're treated as a fully fledged member of that product team. So they're not sitting in the corner writing some tests for someone else's code. They are on the tools from the beginning, writing code or doing business analysis work for those products straight away. So they do really hit the ground running, and that provides us with a great sort of fast track for experience for those graduates, where they do become very knowledgeable very quickly. For our interns, because our interns are undergraduates and they come to us maybe 1 or 2 days a week, we can't sort of put them on roadmap things because their studies come first. So we can't say, hey, you've got a deadline to deliver something, which might clash with university exams or assignments. So we put our interns on pure research projects. And these are new technologies or new areas of interest that we don't know anything about. And so we want to find out about them. And they might make it into our product in the next 3 to 5 years. So our interns are really doing blue sky research for us. And our current interns are doing a lot of work, particularly around Internet of Things and augmented reality for our asset products. That's one of the key areas at the moment for our internships. And recently a couple of our interns completed a project internally within TechOne for the software that runs our hack days. So they were given a project over the summer to revamp that application. So internal, it's not something we sell. And we used that 2 weeks ago at our last company hack day, which was just before virus things got bad and we started to shut down offices. But yeah, really interesting work that that is off roadmap, so it's not something that we commit to customers. But that's how we work with our interns, because we really want them to have a great experience, and we'd love them to stay on as grads after they finish their studies.
Perfect. Thank you. Connor from IMC, what about you?
It is. I'll start off with the grads because I didn't intern, but I did grad, and so I know what that's like best. I think the thing that I like most about IMC is the responsibility that you get. So I've been here for 6 months and I'm working on a core deliverable project. And the way IMC works is it's very, very, very fast paced. So we'll do multiple releases in a day sometimes. And I'm committing, putting my code through review and then putting that straight out there. So if you want to have an impact as a grad, you just have to write good code and find things that can be improved, or implement your projects well and quickly to a high standard, or do them in ways that are smart and innovative, and you can immediately have an impact. That's one of the things I like best. And then in terms of interns, our interns also will be committing to the same repos that we have, or doing separate projects. We have a 12-week program for our interns where they have to build a project, and then that project gets presented to the company, and basically you make a case for the usefulness of the project that you've made. So you'll have a mentor with you throughout the process, and we do a whole bunch of other things around that. But in terms of having an impact as an intern, one of the things that I was working on for the first maybe about a month after the graduation, like the training program at the start of our grad role, was in making improvements on an intern project that had been adopted by the whole US office and were used by every single trader in the office. So if you want to have an impact at IMC, not just as a grad or an intern, you just need to make good code, make useful projects, make useful commits and pushes, and you can have an impact as much as you bring for yourself.
Okay, thank you. Jess, how can interns and grads have an impact at Canva?
Cool. So our graduates kind of come on board. They join one of our teams and they are making impact from day dot. We don't have a set graduate program. We more so have kind of a social support for them. So they get coffee every week and they kind of have events together. But in terms of engineering and impact time, that is from day dot. Some graduates that joined us a few years ago are now leading teams and doing a lot of kind of big innovative projects in that space. So yeah, that's really cool to kind of see them just kind of really committing, working hard and making impact. For our interns, they join us for 12 weeks over the summer. So they do some projects that are similar to what it sounds like at Technology One. So they're given a scoped project. Some are very blue sky kind of experiment thinking, which can find their way into production code. But we don't put that stress on interns that they have to be doing kind of master quality code from their first week, because we want to create a space for them to kind of things go wrong and they don't break the master code. But in saying that, some of our intern code has found it to prod and is empowering over 20 million monthly active users, lots in the App Store space. watch that space as well. So it's pretty cool stuff that they're doing. At the end of their internship, they also present back to their group, which we always get really positive response. Cliff, our CEO, went along to the App Store show and tell, and he's like, just ship it all, just go. So it's pretty fun. Yeah, that's what they do for interns and grads.
Perfect, thanks for that. Rachel, what impact can interns and grads have?
Yep. So our interns and grads are sort of the same in that, they both get put onto teams and they do the work that teams are doing. We often try to give interns like sort of a project that they can do in those 3 months, but that project is very much something that team was going to do anyway, and that absolutely needs to go to prod. And I guess our perspectives differ on this because, from Atlassian's perspective, we don't find it dangerous or anything to put interns on things. If an intern breaks something, if a grad breaks something, if a senior developer or an architect breaks something, then there's something wrong with our processes or our tests and we need to fix that. And that's often where we find interns and grads helpful. So yeah, when I started as a grad, I managed to break Jira and it literally would not load for any of our largest customers and it was horrible. And I had an architect come up to me and thank me for finding a flaw in our processes and saying, hey, we're going to be better from now until forever onwards. So that was pretty cool. But yeah, so the intern on my team recently, if anyone dialed into my talk on Tuesday, he's been responsible for getting comments on an issue view page to render more quickly, and he's done a great job of that. And yeah, that's a huge impact given how often that page gets loaded.
Thanks, it's wonderful to hear that. Finally, James, what impact can interns and grads have at Vivian Court Trading?
So I'll speak from a grad perspective because it's not a concrete intern program, but Vivian likes to deliver itself by throwing the grads in the deep end as early as possible. So getting you right in the operations side as soon as possible in terms of trading, and the same with code. They want you actually making adding features as soon as possible. So for trading, initially you would be writing a project that might be something that one of the senior traders doesn't have time to do currently initially, sort of as your first project. So that might be a hypothesis they might have in the market, something like, I believe doing this there's opportunity to make more money here, or I think we can trade this strategy more often. So sometimes you can trade every hour or every 30 minutes, for example. There's a certain opportunity might arise. Can you find more edge or more profit in what we do already? And then beyond that, getting into trading the actual book would be within 3 to 6 months, whereas most others would be 12 months of training beforehand. And from an analyst perspective, be mostly working on those sort of strategy development things and essentially deciding on things for the traders to execute, as well as things for high frequency trading or algorithmic trading. So the impact you can have from that is actually seeing the profit come through on the wraps at the end of the day. So seeing an impact you can see is something that I did returned more profit for the day or more profit for the month, and could be quite rewarding seeing that.
Yeah, thank you for that. So now we're about to hit 7 p.m. in Brisbane or 8 p.m. in Sydney for those who are down there. So we'll wrap up now. Just one last thing I wanted to ask everyone here. So first thing is, when are the opening and closing dates for your applications for jobs? And secondly, if there's anything else you wanted to say to anyone who's considering applying. I'll start with Connor.
That's a shame because I need to find the opening days for you. I think our applications for winter interns for interns are already open, and I know that they close in mid-April. Our grad roles were actually all filled by our last intern intake. So 14th of April for software engineers is when the applications close for interns. So we don't have any grad roles open at the moment because they were all filled by interns. So those are the applications. the only thing I would say is look forward to seeing you all and make sure you come down. We are growing the Queensland squad inside IMC, slowly taking over. Eventually, we're going to move HQ. Don't tell them about that.
All right. Matt from Tech One, anything else you want to say? And opening and closing dates for applications.
Yeah, so our opening date isn't set at the moment. It will be sometime in June. So they normally stay open for about 6 to 8 weeks. So June, July is the period to apply. That will be across all of the roles, so consulting, sales, and so forth, as well as R&D. We do have a group of 9 interns at the moment who are absolutely astounding. So the competition is going to be fierce. For those interns, will be hopefully staying on as grads, and hopefully we'll get some other amazing people as well. So that's the time frame, and those roles would start for interns. That would be for the end of the year, so a December intake, and for grads it would be a February next year intake, so beginning of the year.
Thanks for that. Jess, anything about Canva or opening dates, closing dates, all that?
Yeah. So our graduate applications are open. We actually, as we don't have a set graduate program, they stay open all year because we have start dates every 2 weeks. For our internship positions, I believe they're open for software engineering, front-end, back-end. Data science should be live by the end of next week, as well as UX design we're also bringing on. If you want to get to know a little bit more and have a bit of a sneak peek inside what working at Canva is like, I highly encourage you to go onto Instagram and check out Canva Live. We've got plenty of photos from our Pride Week we just wrapped up, our season openers, and essentially general lunch vibes that we have when we're not working from home. So yeah, that's me. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, Jess. And Rachel, Atlassian, opening dates, closing dates, all that.
Yeah, so if you head to atlassian.com/students, all our grad roles are open, all our intern roles are open. We've got developer roles, which I assume most people here would be interested in, but we also have things like SRE, security, UX, PM, design, a whole bunch of things. So yeah, jump in on it. We don't have explicit closing dates, but as applications come in, we do run interviews. We're running interviews already. We're hiring people already. So I would recommend getting in sooner. And yeah, worst case, you get some interview experience. If you've applied before, feel free to apply again for sure. We definitely want you to be interested.
Okay, thank you, Rachel. And finally, James from VivCourt.
Yep, graduate and dev roles are open already. For dev, there's also open for halfway through the year start, so start for July. But roles are open, applications are open for roles starting January as well, and the trader applications are open for January. There is no specific closing date, but I would advise getting your applications in as soon as possible so that you can be tested as soon as possible once we're outside of this virus. But yeah, so you want to be through your testing phase ASAP, so apply ASAP.
All right, so that brings us to the end of the industry panel. So thanks so much, everyone, for joining us tonight. There are a lot of questions that we unfortunately did not have time to answer, both in the Slido and in the industry panel Slack chat. So feel free to keep asking them in the industry panel Slack chat, and that will continue after the stream ends. And our next event is on Saturday. So in 2 days' time, we will be having our code jam with Atlassian from 10 a.m. until 3:30 p.m. And that will be a HackerRank style competition with prizes. So be sure to, it's online, by the way. We're not actually going anywhere because of coronavirus once again. But yeah, so it'll be an online competition. Make sure to stay tuned on our Slack for more details about that. And I think that's it. So thanks everyone for joining the stream, and we hope to see you soon. All right, bye-bye.
Thanks, Matt.
Yeah, thanks everyone.